I'm loving the pop off.
What's good? Welcome back to the Pop Off Podcast, a conversation show about the Western Conference in the NBA and the over-unders associated with all of the teams in the West. I'm Ralph Compiano. I'm your host, and I'm joined by my co-host today, Carter Ferriman, aka the Barter 6, in this bitch talking hoop. But I mean, I'm as excited as ever for an NBA season. I probably get to this range every year in October where I'm like, let's go. It's time. Basketball is back. Football season isn't over by any means. But when these two sports are existing at the same time, I'm in my own personal heaven. What is your excitement level like for the NBA tipping off in literally less than a week?
How do I put this eloquently? I am brimming with excitement, Ralph. I was telling you before the show that I was in standstill traffic for the last 2.5 hours, and it wasn't that bad because I knew that at the tail end of that hellscape, I was going to be able to talk with you about the best conference in American sports.
That's sweet.
The Western Conference of the National Basketball Association. Share the airwaves with the best podcast host on this side of the Mississippi, Mr. Freebands himself. Holo, how are you doing, man? How you feeling?
I'm great. It's funny because we just did the Eastern Conference recording last night, and the top of the conference is fun. It's exciting. I was really excited about the middle tier and what teams can take a jump, but then the bottom tier is just absolute ass. It's complete garbage. You talk about the Hawks, the Wizards, the Nets. Then I look at the West, and it's I'm pretty excited about literally every single team, all 15 teams. Maybe the Blazers I might not be that excited about. So I split each of these teams up into tiers, right? That's how I like to think of these things. And I did the same tiers that I did for the East that I did for the West. So we have 5 tiers. The first tier is the title contenders. 3 teams in each tier, so there's 3 teams there. We have the teams that are one move away, at least in my mind. We have the teams that are, let's face it, it's over. And then we have teams that are in basketball purgatory, and then we have the Cooper Flag sweepstakes. So we'll do title contenders first, and we'll start with the team with the second highest over-under in the NBA, and that is the Oklahoma City Thunder at 57.5 wins. I got to pull up their standings from last year. I mean, I think they got to damn near this number last year.
I got it up right now. They went 57-25.
Exactly.
33-8 at home, which was good for best in the NBA besides the Celtics, who went 37-4, I think, which is insane.
Yep.
But this is a loaded squad, and they only got better in the offseason. It's pretty crazy to say that a team was, that was in the Final Four of their conference got considerably better.
But that's the thing. They weren't in the Final Four of the conference because they got bounced in the semifinals by the Mavericks.
Yeah, you're right.
But they're a team that we think of we've seen them so recently. And you're right. They added Alex Caruso and Isaiah Hartenstein, and then they retained everybody. So they get another year of the core of Shea, Jalen Williams, and Chet Holmgren. Who do you think is going to be the biggest leap player for this team? Is there one guy in your mind that is going to take them to another level, the way that his individual game develops?
I can tell you who has to take the biggest leap, and that is Chet.
Yep. 100%.
Chet was fantastic during the regular season, but when called upon to be the secondary scorer for this team in the playoffs, especially with J-Dub having a bit of a mixed bag of a playoff run, Chet just couldn't really put it together, mostly because of the size in the conference, I think. The vast majority of his scoring came on the perimeter, which he is fully capable of doing. But, I see him as a 3-tier scorer, 3-level scorer. And having a guy like Hartenstein down on the post, it may clog things up, but he's fantastic at screens. And then you got Caruso, which takes a bit of a load off on the other end, so you don't have to exert as much energy. Chet's got to be that dude, man. The fact that he is on this team that is already so stacked speaks volumes to the job that Sam Presti has done. And I think at his boot ceiling, he could be a stone cold all-star. It's just a matter of how he chose to improve in the offseason. I mean, I'm going to say this probably every single season until he decides to call it quits. He needs to put on a little more weight. He needs 100%. To put on a little bit more muscle. Chet's got to make the biggest jump. What do you think?
No, I agree. And I've been thinking about him. So, like, last year was technically his rookie season. It was his first year playing an entire season
Crazy.
in the NBA because he was sidelined his real rookie season. You know, he's in the same draft class as guys like Paulo, who is on just a special trajectory right now. And we talked about him yesterday. But with Chet, it's like, all right, when I think of him in my mind, if he can be what Kristaps was for the Celtics last year as a rim protector, then Hartenstein can cover the rebounding, because that was kind of the biggest issue for Chet was in that Maverick series. He was just getting killed on the boards by Gafford and Lively and even Luca to a certain extent. Like, those are just bigger bodies. So they've kind of solved that area of their team where, like, when it comes to April, May, and June, you have to be out rebounding the other team if you want to win the game. But then I also think of him like, I think of him as Kristaps, but I also think of him as part Bam Adebayo, where he can be the hub of your offense as a playmaker at the top of the key, and Hartenstein can do that too. Like, that's what I like about this duo a lot in the front court is they're not just, you know, shot blockers, rebounders, and scorers. They're also really talented passers and high IQ players. And in this offense, you have to have high IQ guys, which Shea has proven to be. Obviously, he's one of the best isolation scorers in the league. I think J-Dub is definitely there. And then you bring in Caruso too. So, like, this is a team that, just think about this. They can put out a lineup defensively where Cason Wallace isn't even on the court. And he was one of the best perimeter defenders in the league as a rookie last year, where you can trot out Shea, Caruso, Dort, Chet, and Hartenstein. Like, they are absolutely lorded. Torture Chamber, like, made my favorite player, Brandon Ingram, look like a goddamn bum last year because he was just pure clamps. So 57.5, I think it's low. And I don't think that's an exaggeration. They got to 57 last year. They had a lot of health. Like, they didn't have the injury luck was on their side. So I think that I would buy them up even to like 62, 63 wins. I think they're that special. They're that deep. And they added two savvy vets in Caruso and Hartenstein. I think that they have the best record in the regular season this year.
Yeah. Okay. Even over the Celtics?
Yes.
Okay. We were talking at the start of the show about how stacked the West is. Like, there really aren't any bad teams besides the Blazers. And then, like, we'll see what jump the Spurs take, which we're going to get into that a little bit later. But I think floor for them has to be the Western Conference Finals, and there should be no excuses for it.
100%.
I'm very curious to see how they work in guys like Isaiah Joe and Cason Wallace, two guys that weren't exactly ready for the moment come playoffs, but I think they're going to have a little bit less on their plates this year. That's kind of the overarching theme for me, is with the additions of Caruso and Hartenstein, some of these stars aren't going to have to do as much and exert as much, have to exert as much energy on the court. Chet is great at a lot of things. He's a good rebounder, but I don't think he needs to do it as much with Hartenstein on the team. He needs to save himself for the offensive end because that's what they're going to need in the playoffs.
And can J-Dub take another leap where...
We forgot about J-Dub. We haven't even talked about...
Well, like, he wasn't very good in the playoffs last year, and it was his first playoff run. Like, he had decent enough games, but it wasn't consistent enough. Like, if you are going to get to that level to the finals, you need to have Luka and Kyrie. You need to have Tatum and Jalen. Anthony needed Cat to play really well every single night. Even the Pacers, like, they had a more balanced approach, but, Nembhard stepped up quite a bit. And the Thunder just didn't have that second guy to complement Shea. Like, he was relied upon to get 35, 36, 37, 38 every single night. Now I think he only has to get 30, and he can do that in his fucking sleep because he just walks into those buckets.
Yeah, J-Dub. Yeah, let me speak a bit on him. I am mad at myself that I forgot about him, to be honest, because I think he's one of my favorite players in the league. He is what I think is the future at the shooting guard position, a guy that can score at all three levels, but is strongest, going to the hoop. He got so big going into last year, and like he's 6'5", but he plays like he's 6'7", 6'8". Like I said, he can get to the hoop better than just about anyone in the league. And I want to see him take that next step, draw more fouls, create a bit of a step back game. And yeah, now that he's been there and he's seen the playoff atmosphere, which I think kind of runs parallel with the Mavs for me. Now that these teams have like been there, we're going to see vastly improved playoff performances, I hope.
Over under 57.5 for the Thunder.
Yeah, like I'm trying to think how many 60-win teams can we have in the West? It's like
I personally think it's one. I think we can have several 50-win teams, but all right. So like my thing with the Celtics, the reason I think they're going to be better than the regular season is they got bounced earlier. The Celtics won the finals. We talked about this on the pod. I actually went under on their 58.5 just because I think that missing Chris Stapps to start the first couple months of the season is going to hurt. And then you have like the target on the back idea of them. Like everybody's been coming from the champion every single night. With the Thunder, like I think they'll have a bigger target on their back, where last year they were more the hunter than the hunt did. But yeah, I think it's difficult to really be like in this loaded of a conference they're going to get 60 wins. But at the same time, they have all of these assets still where if they don't like where the trajectory of their season is going, they can make moves at the deadline. They can go get an Ingram from Oklahoma City. They get from New Orleans. They could get Trey Murphy from New Orleans, somebody like that. They could go get Jarrett Allen if they fucking wanted to. They have all of the picks in the world to trade and some of the salary options to package with that. So they have so much flexibility.
I'm going to take over 57.5 then. And just keep it very simple and say that they won 57 games last year, and I think that they are an improved team. So 58 or higher feels more than reasonable for me.
Okay, so the second team in the title contenders tier, I have the Minnesota Timberwolves. Their over-under is 51.5. Obviously just made a really splashy trade to get Cat out of town for DiVincenzo and Julius Randle. I texted, our former pop-off correspondent, Jack McCoy, just a famous Minnesota Timberwolves fan. And I said, how are you feeling about the Cat trade? He said, I'm 100% for it. I think we'll be about as good as we were last year this season, but we're way more set up for the future now since his contract was going to prevent us from filling out our roster after this year. DiVincenzo will be massive off the bench and not overly concerned about spacing since Cat's spacing at the floor is a little bit overrated in my opinion. He refused to take corner threes. Also, I'm just so glad that I don't have to root for Cat anymore because it was fucking exhausting.
Okay.
So I love the trade for Minnesota. And I also love the fact that they were aggressive in the draft and they traded with the Spurs. I think they gave up like their 2027 or 2029 first round pick to go get Rob Dillingham out of Kentucky, who is a prospect that I really dig. I think he's going to vibe with Anthony. And that's the same reason I think that these guys are going to work in Minnesota. It all revolves around Anthony Edwards. You put guys in his ecosystem, they're going to rise to the occasion. You have Mike Conley, who's still a savvy vet. He doesn't have as much pressure on his shoulders now that Dillingham and DiVincenzo are there. I think Anthony takes a step up as a playmaker. Gobert's still one of the best defenders in the league. Won DPOY again last year for the fourth time, putting him in unparalleled territory. It's just like him and Mutombo. And then you have Jaden McDaniels taking another step up, Nickeil Alexander-Walker. I just love their depth now that they got 2 for 1 in that deal and a pick down the road, which was nice. But then Anthony Edwards, I talked about him last year on the same podcast. He takes another step this year. The Olympics, that experience, I think it's going to be huge for him. He was a little bit underwhelming, I would say, in the Dallas series in the conference finals last year. But leading up to that, he was brilliant. I mean, everybody was stroking him off. ESPN was going crazy about him. House of Highlights, those first 2 rounds against Phoenix and against Denver. And I think that he's going to come back pissed off and hungrier than ever. And he's, 23 years old? Like, this guy is, he's the best American player I think we have going in the league right now. I fucking love him. I cannot wait for the Timberwolves. I'm going over 51.5. It'll be a little bit ugly at first as they start to build chemistry now that Cat's out of the building, but I think the second half of the season they have the opportunity to go on like a 26-6 run into the playoffs.
Yeah, Anthony Edwards got really tired in that series, and I think that's the only reason why he got top. I don't think I've ever seen a player get that tired, a star get that tired, especially a guard.
He doesn't have the best diet in the world. He's in press conferences talking about, I'm ordering McDonald's right now on DoorDash, like while he's talking to like the interviewees, and it's just like, oh man, we got to get you on like the chicken and rice diet. Like you got to have a dietitian in Minnesota taking care of him.
I would be very surprised if that's not something that they focused on during the summer. Yeah, Jack, you don't got to cheer for Cat, but you got to cheer for Julius now. Julius Randle. That's my big question mark here.
It's fair.
Julius took a lot of shots as a member of the Knicks. A lot. I think as many as Cat, maybe, right?
And different kinds of shots too, right? Like he's a ball stopper. He's off the dribble work. He's not as much of a spot up 3-point shooter as Cat was.
Yeah, which I think adds a new dimension to the offense because besides Ant, they don't have a guy like that.
Sure.
Yeah, he's my big question mark because he's been so bad in the playoffs. And if Ant does get tired like that again, you're going to need that secondary scorer because they don't really have one. Like they've got guys coming off the bench now. They've got Dillingham, Terrence Shannon, which I don't know how much time he's going to get this year, but I want to see how he performs in the playoffs, which is so far down the road. I can't believe we're talking about it. I don't know. I find 51.5 to be very low. Getting Cat out of the building. I think the pop-off pod is famously against Cat as a player. And so, seeing him gone, I am all for. I'm very curious to see how his personality fits into the grit and grind of the, Thibodeau squad there. I think he's going to have to be humbled quick if he wants to be successful. But I don't know if the Timberwolves get to the same number that they got to last year at 56 wins, but I do think that they get over 51.5. I think that the ceiling and the floor are pretty close to each other here. Mid 50s in terms of wins is like what I see right around the 3 or 4 seed going back in the same situation as where they were the previous season. It's really just going to come down to, can they maintain that defensive tenacity in the playoffs that they had in the previous year versus the Nuggets? And can these newfound guys, DiVincenzo and Julius, produce on the offensive end? DiVincenzo, who I'm not the biggest fan of, I got to tip my hat to him. He looked fantastic in the playoffs. I think his shooting splits were like both well over 40% for 2 and 3 pointers. So yeah, we'll see. I'm going to go over, but I'm not as confident about it as I am about taking the over for the Thunder.
They won 56 games last year, and they were lights out last year. Have you watched the Starting Five show on Netflix yet with, Sabonis, Tatum, Butler, LeBron, and Ant?
I have not, but that's next on my list.
Okay, so I watched the first 2 episodes, and the first episode, it's the first 45 minutes, the first 90% of the show is all about LeBron, Tatum, Butler, and Sabonis. And then the last 5 minutes, they spend just introducing Ant. And then the very beginning of the next episode is almost all Ant exclusively for 15 minutes. And they showed the Timberwolves Celtics game last year where the Wolves beat the Celtics in overtime. There was that famous possession of Ant clamping up Jason Tatum, getting a jump ball, and then clapping in his face and talking shit. And he said something really interesting where he was like, you can't just come to the crib and get a win. And they were 30-11 at home last year. And I think that he's bringing back that mindset of you're not just going to fuck around, show up at my house, and take a win from me. And so I love that. And I just love that, Chris Finch is such a goddamn good coach because he got Karl Anthony Towns, of all people, to buy in on the defensive end of the floor. The stuff that he was able to do to Jokic last year, he didn't have to play him the entire game, but he did a pretty good job on literally the best player in the league. I think he's going to get a similar thing out of Randall and DiVincenzo, and they're already coming from an environment with Tibbs where defense is prioritized. So Minnesota, they have a similar philosophy. It's not going to be a change of culture as much for those two guys. And then I'm glad you mentioned Terrence Shannon Jr. I'm excited to watch him play basketball. I hope he gets
so
some run
much
this
fun
year.
in college, man.
He was ridiculous.
He lit up a tournament. I mean, I haven't seen somebody score 30 plus that consistently in a long time, especially a player built like that. I mean, he's built for the NBA. I'm curious to see where they play him. I feel like he's a natural 2 guard, but he's a little bit bigger. He's actually built a little bit like J-Dub, a little bit thinner. Has that ability to get to the hoop just like him. Can't really shoot all that well. We'll see how that translates. But I'm happy that you brought up the culture. Yeah, I think that DiVincenzo, the type of guy that he is, how he carries himself, I bet he's already bought in. Julius might take a bit of time, but yeah, this is Ant's team. And he and Chris have built this culture of just being pricks on the court. And Julius has got to snarl a bit, man. He's got to buy into the defensive scheme. He's got to slap the fucking floor.
Yep.
I am very excited to watch this team. And watching them play the Nuggets throughout the season. I don't know how many times they play, but those are all circled on my calendar. I don't care if it's here at the Ball Arena or if it's at what do they play at the Target Center?
Yep.
If it's at the Target Center, those are the ones that I have circled in big red highlighter on my calendar this year.
So we are actually going to go see. I go to see the Timberwolves up in Minneapolis probably about 3 times a year, and
Nice.
this year we are going to see them play the Spurs. We're going to go see Wemby and Ant. We're taking a couple of my boys up there.
Fun.
It'll be their first NBA game. They're pumped for it. But yeah, I mean, there's just a different kind of atmosphere in Minneapolis. They have your Denver's former general managers, their president of basketball operations right now, Tim Connolly, who I think is one of the most underrated basketball minds that we've had over the last 5 to 10 years. He built a championship roster in Denver, and now he comes to Minneapolis, done a really good job in the draft, so I'm excited for the Timberwolves. So we're both over on the Timberwolves and the Thunder. Thunder at 57.5, Wolves at 51.5. The last team that I have in the title contender category is the Dallas Mavericks. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Their
I don't know
over-under
why
is set at...
the Nuggets. I don't know why I thought you were going to say the Nuggets.
So they're over. We'll talk about the Nuggets in a second. The over-under for the Mavs is the same as the Nuggets. They're both at 50.5, according to FanDuel at least. I really like what Dallas did this offseason. You know, they weren't satisfied with just arriving to the finals. So they recognize that, you know, we have the best playmaker in the world, if not the second best player in the world, in Luka. And we just need a little bit more shooting around him. So they go and they get not just Klay Thompson, who was the splashiest move this offseason, but they also get Quentin Grimes, who's a young player that I like, shows some promise. Nice. And then they get one of my favorite just glue guys in the NBA, and Najee Marshall from the Pelicans. You know, NBA nerds love this guy. If you've been watching League Pass and you tune into the Pelicans the last couple of years to watch Zion, you see Najee Marshall and you're like, that guy's fucking everywhere. And I like that they're bringing that to this team. You also get another year of Derek Lively, who was phenomenal last season. And I think that he takes another leap this year. He's like 19 or 20 years old. His game is not, he's not even close to his ceiling right now. And then you have Luka and Kyrie. And if you can get another year of Kyrie with that level of consistency and attention to detail, I mean, the sky's the limit. Once again, I think 50.5 is actually kind of low for a team with the front runner for MVP. Luka is the leader in the clubhouse for odds on the MVP. I think they probably have to win 54 to 55 games if he wants to be in consideration for that award, because I think the Thunder are going to be in the 60-win category. And if they're in that category by themselves, then Shea's going to walk away with MVP. I think Luka's pissed. He looked really good in the Olympics when he was available. I'm going to go over here as well. So I'm starting off the pod with 3 overs for the title contenders.
Yeah, I'm going to go over too. And I feel like the levy here's got to break at some point, but I just really like all these teams in the West towards the top. I don't know how the Clippers won one more game than the Mavs last year. And we'll talk about the Clippers over under because it plummeted this offseason. The Mavericks, where do I start? Derek Lively and Daniel Gafford is a duo down low. Gafford really fit into like a fake 5-4 role. And Lively was a true 5. Those two were fantastic up until the finals, and then they kind of wet the bed. But I don't blame him, man. Yeah, like you said, he was a rookie, and it was Gafford's first time. Like, Gafford got a lot of media attention because he was on the scoring streak, or he was on the bucket streak. So like he really got thrusted into the spotlight, which for a guy that's been a role player his entire life can probably take on a lot of weight and bring on a lot of stress. This is what I was talking about before with the Thunder. The Mavericks have now officially been there, right? They have seen what it takes. They've got finals film that they've been watching all summer where they played the most well-oiled machine that we've seen in the NBA in a long time with the Joe Mazzulla Celtics. So they've got what it takes to go back, man. Like I said, I'm going to go over again. Kyrie's going to be just fine. He's just got to stay healthy. Luka's going to be just fine. I really hope that Luka bought in even more this offseason because he saw, what the Celtics did from a commitment perspective. I'm not saying that he's not committed, but, that's always going to be a stigma that he has. And I think he breaks it this year, just like, staying about his business. And they added a lot of depth. Grimes, Marshall, who I'm not the biggest fan of. I'm not as big on him as most NBA nerds are, but he's not going to have to do a ton for this team. Just as long as he does his job, I think he fits in well. Do they still have Derrick Jones Jr.?
No, he's actually in Los Angeles with the Clippers.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, he was. It's going to be really valuable for Luka when he's driving to the paint. When he looks to kick it out to the 3-point line, he'll be able to kick it to Clay instead of Derrick Jones Jr.
Tim Hardaway Jr., who's the streakiest shooter of all time.
Yeah.
They were 21-9 last year after the trade deadline when they went out and got PJ Washington and Gafford. And
PJ too, who was he had a tough playoffs, but yeah, like I said before, these guys have now been there and they had an off season where they know that they have the potential to be, they have more than the potential, they have the full-fledged ability to be a championship team. So yeah, I just hope that they all buy in.
One move away, the next tier. These teams in my mind are one move away from being not just title contenders, but competing for the number one seed in the Western Conference during the regular season. Because this is a regular season over-unders after all. Let's start with the Nuggets. Their over-under is 50.5. They have the best basketball player on planet Earth in Nikola Jokic. My thing is, I think that the loss of Kentavious Caldwell-Pope is as damaging of a loss for a team as really any that happened this offseason. I know he wasn't tremendous in the playoffs. He was pretty streaky. But just the decoy of having a shooter like him out there, I don't know who replaces him in that role. It either has to be Christian Brown, Julian Strawther, one of those guys that proves that they can knock down literally wide open threes because you're playing with not just Jokic, but Jamal is going to take enough attention from the defense, MPJ, and Gordon to an extent in the dunker spot. I just don't know who the fifth guy is, and that makes me a little bit nervous. And at the same time, I like Michael Malone. I don't love Michael Malone. I like Jamal Murray a lot. I haven't loved how he's looked the last 7 months, essentially, ever since they implemented, the FIBA rules, quote unquote, where it was a little bit more jail basketball, a little bit more physical defensively. What happened to him in that Timberwolves series? Granted, he was going against two of the best perimeter defenders in the league, in Jaden and Ant, and it's going to be tough for anybody to overcome that. But I don't know. They were also they got a lot of games out of MPJ last year. I think he played all 82, and I'm not sure if that's going to happen 81 again. Yeah. So I'm going to go under here. It kills me. I think they get to exactly 50-32 or 49-33, but they did go 57-25 last year. So I'll go under here, and it kills me because Jokic is one of my favorite players of all time.
I have a lot to say about the Nuggets being here in the city of Denver. Yeah, Jamal really lost my trust during the playoffs last year. If it wasn't for that earth-shattering shot that he hit versus the Lakers in Game 3 or Game 4, we would be talking about him a lot differently. Especially because of the feud that he had with the front office and the Kroenke family over the summer about the Supermax contract, where I think he's getting paid as much as Giannis now.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, so it's a $210 million contract. Then he shows up to the Nuggets media day 2 weeks back, and you would expect him to at least be mildly thankful about the opportunity that he's been given and the trust that was instilled by the ownership group. Granted, it took a bit of time over the summer, and during that time, he put up maybe the worst Olympic performance that I've ever seen out of a player for Team Canada. He was awful. And he comes in and he's not even talking about basketball. He's talking about how when he retires, he wants to be an MMA fighter, and he's kind of checked out and being a little bit hostile with the media people here who don't play any games. The media market here is huge. So Jamal's got a lot to prove, man. He got his bag. Now it's time to show up. He felt slighted for not getting the All-Star nod. This is your season to prove it. Speaking of All-Stars, my big prediction is I think Michael Porter Jr. is going to be an All-Star this year. He put on a lot of muscle during the offseason. He's already a really good rebounder. And he's got help down there too with Aaron Gordon and then Jokic too. He came to the media day locked in, Like, oh my
You
God.
take a lot of credence to media day. You're a big media day guy.
Yeah, no, I listen to sports talk way too much here. So yeah, like I probably am putting too much credence on it. But yes, I think that Michael Porter Jr. takes that next step this year, because if he doesn't, then the entire fan base is going to turn on him. You make a very good point. The 2-guard position is completely up in the air. Christian Braun hasn't done enough to where on most championship contender teams, you would feel comfortable, saying out of the gate, he is our starter at the shooting guard position. And I think that Strother could take it from him because he is such a good shooter, and Christian Braun really hasn't improved on that front. But it all boils down to, I'm going to take the over here, because it boils down to the best player on the planet is on their side. And I don't think Jokic misses the Western Conference Finals 2 straight seasons. I think he's that good. We saw him take a bunch of Serbian plumbers and ice cream truck drivers down to the wire with the most stacked team USA that we've seen since the 80s. He just has what it takes, man. Every single time that he steps on that court, I feel confident in this squad. So I'm going to go over what you said. It was 50.5.
Yep. 51 wins.
Yeah. I think that they might be a little bit worse, but I don't think that they drop below 50 on the season.
So I don't disagree with the playoff point. I think that once they get to the playoffs, they're a flip the switch team, right?
Sure.
I would put my money on them making it to the conference finals against the Thunder or Wolves, somewhere around there. I actually have a player comp for Christian Braun. Let me know what you think of it. I think, we have to cross the barrier of race when we do player comps, especially with guys as athletic as Christian Braun. I think he might be Trevor Ariza, like Lakers Trevor Ariza, where he was, a splashy athlete. And if he is just that, and then Houston Trevor Ariza combined, where Trevor Ariza and Houston had a jump shot and he could catch wide open driving kicks from Harden and Chris Paul or Westbrook, whoever it was, then I think you have a really good player. But the depth is really concerning to me. I'm looking at this roster, and now you have you're essentially your 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th guys are Saric, Westbrook, who we haven't talked about, Peyton Watson, Zeke Naji, and then I think Strother and Trey Alexander, who I actually really like, and then Deron Holmes, the kid from Dayton too. I like what they did in the draft. They got PJ Hall from Clemson too.
Holmes is actually out for the season. He tore his Achilles in the first game of the preseason.
Oh, fuck.
Which was a terrible, because the Nuggets traded up 7 spots with the Suns to snag him. I thought that he was going to be a perfect backup 4 because he's 6'10", but he was an incredible scorer. He was the A-10 player of the year at Dayton.
Good passer too.
Yeah. So to lose him, you are really thrusting Saric, who hasn't really gotten a lot of play time the past couple of seasons at all. You are thrusting him into a necessity role behind Jokic and Gordon. He is a playmaker, and he's good on the defensive end, but we'll see if he has what it takes. Yeah, I think you bring up a fantastic point talking about the depth here. Zeke Naji just doesn't have it, right?
It's either him or DeAndre Jordan in the backup 5, and that is dangerous territory to be in. Jokic cannot keep playing 40 minutes a night. It's not healthy for my guy.
It's actually really funny. I was listening to The Ringer when I was in my car coming here, and they were talking about Zeke for some fucking reason. And they said that the best compliment that I can give Zeke Naji is that he is a basketball player. It's just he hustles and he's big and he can score if it's if it's a wide open shot or if it's inside of 3 or 4 feet, but he's not going to give you anything worth a damn. I'm still going to go over here, but this is a nut up or shut up season for quite a few players on this team. And me and you were big fans of the Lakers too. We saw what KCP did there. We saw what he did for, Denver in his first couple seasons here. He is a championship caliber player who just had a bit of a bad playoff run. So to let him walk really makes me anxious, especially when you don't have that gap filled. It's the front office guy, Calvin Booth, who took Tim Connolly's place. It is him betting on his draft picks and really rolling the dice with Jokic's prime here, because I think they have maybe 3 or 4 seasons left before we really start to say, oh, fuck, this is probably over. So
Well, I think it's up to him. I've actually had this conversation in the past where it's like, all right, what guy do I want for the next season? What guy do I want for the next 5 years? And guy do I want for the next 10 years? And the guys that routinely come up in those conversations are Wembanyama, obviously, he's a different breed, but Giannis, Luka, and Jokic. And I always say Jokic and Luka over Giannis because they play so low to the ground already that I feel like there's less variability in the chances of them getting hurt, like a serious injury. Whereas guys like Giannis, Anthony Edwards, Ja Morant, they play such an explosive game that they are just inherently more susceptible to actually getting hurt. So I think personally, like Jokic already plays like a 55-year-old man at the Y. Why couldn't he get away with this for another 10 years? Like, how old is he? 30, 31? Like, I don't know why he wouldn't be able to get to 30. So I don't know why he wouldn't be able to play like this at 37, 38 because it's his brain that is the superpower. And, you know, he's always going to have this body. It's just whether or not he wants to get up and down the court. Like, it's ligament issues with those explosive guys. I think with bigs like Jokic, it's like foot bones and stuff like that. I'm not a sports scientist, but at least that's just my theory.
Here, so I've got one more point, and then we got to move on from this team. I'm going to throw you a question and a scenario here. Let's say that the Nuggets are staring down the barrel of like a 47-win season, and they're kind of hitting the panic button a bit because the two-guard spot has just not panned out. Christian Braun isn't what they thought. He hasn't developed a shot. Strother can shoot okay, but he's not good on the defensive end. Who do they go and get to make a playoff run? Who's the two that doesn't have to be a world beater because I don't think that they have the trade assets. You probably have to give up Braun, right?
Yeah.
Like you probably have to give up Christian and some picks. Who do you get in a trade like that from a bad team that can kind of take you over the hump? Is it Zach LaVine?
I mean, that was the name that I was going to suggest, but I think you have to look else. I think you start looking at, because I don't know if you're going to have the salaries to match up with it. So you need a team that's willing to sell high on a guy that can get buckets, right? Now, don't hate me for saying this.
Middle?
Cam Thomas.
Oh, that's fun. Yeah, dude, I fucking love that.
Because you've had guys like him and like Bones. Like Bones is like that kind of player where it's like, all right, you know, when he checks in, he's ball dominant. Like ideally it would be like Malik Monk or somebody like that. But if you can't get Malik Monk in free agency, he re-signed with the Kings, then I mean, I wish they still had KCP, but just somebody that can go out and get a bucket and that can like lead the second unit and then play with the five. It's just whether or not Cam Thomas is going to set his ego aside because he's like, fuck, I'm not in Brooklyn anymore playing in front of 1,500 people. I'm playing in Denver and we're chasing a championship. So I guess I like that a little bit.
Yeah. I think that's a good point. I was thinking that Anthony Simons was another player that like kind of crossed my mind.
Love him.
Like I don't know if the Blazers want to give him up because he's like one of the only guys there that can do shit. Whereas like Cam Thomas is so boomer bust that it's like it doesn't feel like a future player for any rebuild process. And then Chris Middleton crossed my mind too, just as like an older guy that like you potentially bring in. But I don't think that the Bucks are going to be sellers. So we'll see.
All right, the next team in the one move away tier. Let's talk about the Memphis Grizzlies. Their over-under is 47.5. Ja Morant returning. Triple J already injured, which isn't a great sign. They went out and they drafted Zach Edey. They bring Marcus Smart, Desmond Bane, and that cast of characters back. This is a team that was completely sidelined last year because Ja played, I think 9 games? And they ended up going 27-55. Still love Taylor Jenkins as a coach.
Yeah.
Still, I don't know. I think I really like this team, actually. 47.5 seems low. Like, weren't they the 2 seed 2 years ago with like 55 wins?
Yeah, but if Jaren Jackson isn't fully healthy, then that really throws a kink in the chain for this squad because he is so important. And I actually think for the top 30 players in the NBA, the list that we have put together over the course of the past week, I think he at least like deserves a vote or two, like, you know, closer to the 30 spot. I think he's that valuable for this team. One of the better defenders in the league, top 5 for sure. So it's in a waiver on his health. I'm very excited to see how Marcus Smart fits into this squad. They still have Brandon Clark too, who I'm a humongous fan of. Just like Grizzly personified. Yeah, like if you took the culture of the team and you melded it into a single player, it'd be him. I know Tibbs would fucking love him. Yeah, like I think I'm gonna go under here. Because for health purposes, I just don't think that this team stays fully healthy all season. But what I do hope is that by the time the playoffs come around, they are at least as close to full strength with Ja in the clip for a playoff run.
JJ Jackson is going to miss at least 3 months. He was kind of a bright spot for them last year. Really
He's out
fun,
too. Fuck,
really
man.
young
What's up
player.
with the Jacksons, dude?
GG is, God, yeah, he played 1 year last year. He's young. He was fucking not even 20 yet. He's still 19. That's ridiculous.
Man, I can't wait until he's like 25.
God, yeah, he played 1 year last year. He's young. He was fucking not even 20 yet. He's still 19. That's ridiculous.
Man, I can't wait until he's like 25 and is just an absolute dog and like works up his defensive, play and like finds other ways to score. He's a very exciting player.
So if I'm being optimistic, it looks like Jaren will be available at least in the first 2 weeks of the season, which is good.
Oh, all right.
We can talk about Ja all we want. I just want to spend 1 minute on this guy right here. They drafted Cam Spencer from UConn, and
Grizzly.
The Grizzlies drafted him, and the Pacers drafted his backcourt teammate, Tristan Newton. And I don't think it's a coincidence when teams that have drafted this well in the past, you think of JJ Jackson, Vince Williams, Bane, guys that are going lower on the boards, but they have them really high on their boards. The Pacers, they get Nembhard, Ben Shepherd, Isaiah Jackson, guys lower that are immediately contributors. I don't think it's a coincidence that these two franchises drafted these two guys. And I love Cam Spencer. I am really hoping that he gets some run with his team this year, just like as a backup 1, backup 2, shoots the shit out of the ball, good playmaker, really just smart. Like my dream basketball player. If I could coach a player, it'd be Cam Spencer. Like he's just my kind of guy. With Ja,
Cam Spencer, yeah, we're gonna.
What do you anticipate from Ja this year?
Do I anticipate a return to form to what we saw 2 seasons back?
Like all NBA team Ja, or just all-star Ja?
Dude, it's so hard in the West, right? It's like, who are we going to put him over in the front court, right? It's like, we already have SGA, Ant over here, Luca, right? It's like, who do we put him over? Booker, right? It's like who do we put him over in terms of guards? Yeah, like he's for sure going to be an all-star. I think that is like besides the point. That's an afterthought. But he's just got to stay on the court, because if he stays on the court, this team is in almost every game that I've ever seen him play. No one gets to the hoop like this guy. There isn't a single player in the entire league besides maybe Bron and Ant, right? God, man, his ability to just go full speed and then stop and like take those like 4 to 5 foot floater shots is just a thing of beauty. But I think that he's going to have to adjust his game a bit because of the injury. I see a little bit of Derrick Rose in him, right? And, there is some truth and some credence to your knees wearing down a bit because of that.
Yep.
But I think if he leans on the floater game more and like focuses less on trying to baptize people, like he's got to be careful, which is like an insane thing to say for a guy like Ja Morant, who is like the least careful person in professional basketball, because he has to understand what's at stake here. This is a team that can contend, right? They have so many fucking pieces. They have so many fantastic guards. Edey, as much as I didn't like him in college, I think he's going to give him like 20 to 25 really solid minutes a night. Like he adds a whole new dimension to this team. I'm actually curious to see how he clogs up the paint, because Ja likes to go down there so much. Yeah, what's their over under? 47.5. Yeah, I'm going to go under, but not by much. I see like 5 seed, 6 seed, and a really sneaky squad in the playoffs.
I'm over. Let's play a quick game before we move on. I'm going to name a player, lightning round, and you tell me if you'd rather have them or Ja Morant. All right, we'll just do guards. Devin Booker.
I would rather have Book.
Okay. Donovan Mitchell.
Ja.
Tyrese Halliburton.
You know that's my boy. If you were talking to any other person on the planet that doesn't live in the city of Indianapolis, I think the answer would probably be Ja, but I'm going to go Tyrese because he's my favorite player in professional basketball.
Tyrese Maxey.
Ja. Not even close.
Kyrie Irving.
Ja.
Okay, last one. Stephen Curry.
What do you think? What would you pick there?
I'm going to take Steph still, at least this season.
Man. See, now, like, if you put Stephen Curry onto the Grizzlies right now, how far do they go? Right?
See, yeah, that's the thing. I'm not sure. I would probably take their under, actually.
They could not be more different guards. Like, they could not be more different. Man, that'd be fun. You put John the Warriors with Jonathan Kuminga and all
I think
those
both
guys.
teams get inherently worse. I think that's,
Sure.
they just wouldn't be as fun to watch. All right, let's move on to the next team. The last team in the one move away category. We're the Phoenix Suns. Their over-under is also 47.5. Now, they made some moves this offseason, which I was really excited to see. You know, they have obviously their core of Booker, Durant, who was rumored to be shopped around, but they confirmed this is our guy. We're sticking out with him. We want him to retire here. And Bradley Beal as well. They go out, they get a real point guard in Tyus Jones. After we just talked about Memphis, that's ironic. He just wasted away in D.C. last season with the Wizards. They get Mason Plumlee, who we both like a lot, I think, as, you know, a good backup center at the very least, serviceable, good passer, good playmaker. They go get Monte Morris, which is another. I mean, they really just went like for the point guard position. They're like, we're going to get Monte and Tyus. We just want assist to turnover ratio to be out of this fucking world with those two guys. And then they get Ryan Dunn in the draft, who is, I think, the best defender in the draft from Virginia. They retain Royce O'Neal, Grayson Allen. And at the end of the day, this team is going to go as far as Kevin Durant and Devin Booker decide to take them. And whether or not Bradley Beal wants to play up to his contract of, drumroll please, $50.2 million. I mean, just disgusting. Like, he's making Jamal Murray money, which is crazy to me. But I like this team. I think they improved a lot this offseason.
Yeah, for sure. And you say that they're going to go as far as Booker and KD take them. Those guys, I don't have any doubt that they're going to perform in the playoffs. Night in, night out. Two of the most surefire scorers that we've ever seen step on a hardwood floor. It's going to come down to the Beals and the Tyus Joneses. And one of their biggest problems was depth in these past seasons. So I think that Tyus is one of the sneakiest pickups of the entire offseason. He's going to be a guy that I'm going to be targeting in fantasy basketball. He was fantastic for me last year, and I think he's going to fit in perfectly to this squad. Yeah, those guys are going to perform. KD and Booker are going to get it done every single night. They're so efficient, and they can score from literally everywhere on the court. Bradley Beal, yeah, you said it. He's got to live up to the $50 million, which I don't think he's capable of, but he can't fuck up. I think that's the bottom line. He's got to be smart on the defensive end. He's not a particularly good defender, but he's just got to be smart, and he's got to, fit in, because this isn't the strongest team defensively. He's just got to do his job, and he's got to be efficient scoring, which it's hard to imagine a world where if you spend an entire summer hooping in the practice gym with KD and Book that you don't at least get a little bit more efficient. But he has to. I think he's their X factor.
He better be their fucking X factor. Get ready for this. 50.2 this year, 53.6 next year. And then in the year of our Lord, 2027, Bradley Beal will be making $57 million if he decides to pick up his player option.
Oh my
God,
yeah.
Joke from Russillo. Yeah, he's
gonna what's his name?
Ishbia.
Matthew Ishbia is a fucking dunce. Like, I love that he brought in KD. That's awesome. And it was great for the city. Like, he's selling tickets, but the Bradley Beal contract, man, he's not going to be able to live that one down. It's like, it doesn't get a whole lot worse than their previous owner, Robert Sarver, but Ishbia wanted to be the center of attention and like really just like chucking cash to players that like he thinks are fun. Has always like rubbed me the wrong way, which is why I love the Tyus move and the Grayson Allen move. Those are two guys that I see making a serious impact on this team, because Booker and Katie don't want to do the dirty work. Those two guys do. And so I think they're going to complement each other incredibly well. $57 million fucking dollars, Ralph. $57 million for Bradley Beal.
I liked Bradley Beal too. I used to really like him. Like, he was 51% from the field and 43% from three last year. That's awesome. But in the playoffs, I mean, it couldn't have been half that, right? Like in that Minnesota series, I feel like he was completely inept. Let's see here. Yeah, it dipped down to 44% from the field. So if you're going down 7% from the field and only averaging 16 a game is like the guy, it's just going to be tough. All right. So did you go over or under? I'm sorry.
What was their over under? I didn't even hear it.
47.5. Same as the Grizzlies.
Under by a half a game. I think they win 47 games.
I'm with you. I'm on the under. All right.
Yeah.
We are now moving into the next tier. And this tier, it's not the same as, I'll just put it this way. Let's face it, it's over. We'll start with the Los Angeles Lakers, who have an over-under of 42.5. I'm the biggest LeBron guy you'll ever meet. I'm the founder of LeBronunism. I'm a LeBronunist at heart. I believe in him. I believe in JJ Reddick. I believe in Anthony Davis. But those guys played like a combined 150 games last year in the regular season. I don't think that's feasible that it'll happen in back-to-back seasons.
Doing it, Ralph. They can't keep doing it. Braun, I think he can because he's not a human being. Anthony, though, I mean, he won me fantasy leagues last year.
He was so good last year.
This was a statistical outlier in terms of the games that he played. You really can't expect more than 70 out of him, man. Like, they won
47 games last year. They're 47-35, and their under this year is 42.5. I am going to go over strictly because they have JJ Reddick on the sidelines now and not Darvin Ham. Like, who?
Lump boy.
I can't remember what the coaching adjustment was. God, it'll come to me at some point. But I was like, this has to be one of the most dramatic adjustments from one coach to the next that's happened in a long time. The guy had his hands in his pockets every single game. He did not have the respect of his team. He was just, a backup point guard in the NBA for a while. He deserved to get a job at some point, and he just didn't do the most that he could with it. I think JJ is going to be a hell of a coach. I think some people are born to coach basketball, and I think JJ Reddick is one of those guys.
Those people, yeah. No, I'm just sad that we had to cut the podcast that he had with Braun short.
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah. Over under on this team, 42.5. I think they go over, but not by much. I think they're middle of the pack in the West. 42 would have been good for, oh boy, that would have been good for like the 10 seed.
That would have been good for not even making the play-in.
The playoffs, yeah, right. I don't see Braun missing the playoffs, man. I just don't see it happening again, but I say that, and then Anthony's going to go down with like a hamstring injury, and then they're just going to lose a bunch of games.
Another thing to consider here is like, you remember when Fred VanVleet and Giannis like took a step up after they had kids, like they got dad strength. We've never seen dad strength in the NBA when your kid is on your team. Like Bronny's not going to be an impact player at all, but like, is there a different level to Bron this year? Maybe like, damn, I got to show out. Like his son was always at the games. He'd be at Crypto or Staples, like with one of his boys that just looked chopped sitting next to him. But like, is there another level that LeBron gets to with his son on the bench, just sitting there?
No. Yeah, it's crazy. I played my best football games in high school when my entire family was in the crowd, but I didn't ever have my dad playing guard by me. Right? So it's like, I don't know. I don't know if there's a next level because we don't have a thing to compare it to. Like we don't have anything.
It's Griffey. Griffey's the only other comparison.
Yes, right. Which is baseball. So like, who cares? Yeah, but it's no. Sorry,
no, you're right. Fuck baseball.
Yeah,
is there a game happening right now? I bet there is, and I didn't even know.
Yeah, no, probably. Who gives a fuck? No, yeah, but I am actually kind of excited at the prospect of the Dodgers-Yankees final. I think that this team goes over, but just by a little bit. I'm going to believe in Anthony Davis. He is one of the most fascinating players that I've ever seen in terms of his floor and his ceiling, because when he's off, he's like maybe top 20, but when he's on, I think you could make a case that he's like one of the three best players in the league. That's
Facts.
how good he is, man. He has games, dude. He had a couple of games last year in the playoffs where he was going like 30 plus points, 20 plus boards, 3 or 4 blocks, right? And was just like a stalwart inside. He's the only guy that like I've been able to see like kind of neutralize Jokic in like certain, back to basket situations. Austin Reeves needs to step the fuck up. They are paying him to be a basketball player, and he needs to prove it, that he is the legitimate third person on this squad. He's got that swagger, but I think he needs to put his head down, nose to the grindstone season for him this year, because the Lakers are going to be under a microscope once again. I really think it comes down to Anthony Davis's health, but I'm going to bet on him because I'm a fan. So I'm going to take the over.
Anthony Davis last year in the first round against the Nuggets averaged 28 points, 15.5 rebounds, 4 assists.
How many blocks?
A little over 2 a game, and he had 2 steals in the series. He was 0 for 5 from 3 in that series. He took 5 threes. He missed all of them. I think that when he came to the Lakers, like people were like, oh, this is going to be like a stretch 5. That's what Anthony Davis is going to become. He's only shot over 30% twice. Or sorry, it looks like, no, I had different stats up here. I'll just read it off. 0% his rookie year, 22, 0.8, 32, 30, 34, 33, 33. Since he's been a Laker, 26, 18, 26, 27, attempting about 1 a game. JJ Reddick's going to want to shoot a lot of threes. Like, if you listen to his podcast over the last couple of years, he idolized the Celtics because they were just getting him up. They had Horford. They had Kristaps. Can Anthony become a shooter at this point of his career? I mean, he's 13 seasons in now at this point? This will be his 13th season in the NBA. I'm not sure it changes that much, but I mean, shit. Like, as far as like a paint threat, he's shooting 82% from the line, averaged 25 and 13 last year. He's still one of those guys. He's always going to be, first team all defense. It'll be him and Wemby. Those are the guys, or Gobert maybe. And he'll always be like NBA second team, NBA third team.
Yeah. If you were a Lakers center, I mean, I think historically you just got to play like Shaq. You got to play like Kareem, and that's exactly what he's done. He's done a damn good job of it. Mm-hmm. I'm very curious. They have a lot of role players that I want to see a lot out of and are going to be expected to do a lot purely because they're on a JJ Reddick-led Los Angeles squad, right? Dalton Connect is a really interesting one for me. And Gabe Vincent put up an absolute stinker of the season after, getting like a $12 million a year bag, I think.
I mean, he was barely available. And when he did play, he didn't do a goddamn thing. He had like the Tobias Harris effect where like, was that guy playing last night? I literally can't remember if he was on the court.
I think he's one of the 5 highest paid players on the team. So he's got to step up, man. And then they got D'Lo too, who we haven't even spoken about. D'Lo's D'Lo. He'll always be right. I mean, like, he'll always just be himself, and you can't change it. But yeah, the role players have got to be able to shoot, because you can't expect Bron to hit those look down, step back threes every night, because it's just not going to happen. And then Anthony Davis has, sometimes, come on. I'm a fan too.
Yeah.
But I don't want Anthony Davis to have to take any more threes than he already is. He's just been so good inside, and he had to bruise down there, and he showed that he could stay healthy for the entire season doing it. So, I'm going to go over here.
The Golden State Warriors. Let's face it, it's over. Their over-under is 1 win above the Lakers. They're at 43.5. This offseason, they went out and got Buddy Hield. They also got Kevin Knox, it looks like. Good for them. D'Anthony Melton. They retained
a nice pickup.
They get Kyle Anderson from the Timberwolves, a.k.a. Slow-Mo. And They still have Stephen Curry and then Draymond. And this will be the first season that they've had in, 13 years since Klay Thompson has not been a member of the Warriors. They're paying Andrew Wiggins $26 million a year, which is insane. I like Brandon Pajemski. I'm a Pods guy. I host a pod. I'm a Pods guy. I like Trace Jackson Davis quite a bit. Spencer Clark, our friend and Pop-Off Pod consigliere and roster member, said that Buddy Hield was going to be an all-star this year. I'm trying to make up in my mind if that's as crazy or crazier than you saying Michael Porter Jr. is going to be an all-star this year. I think it's probably a little bit more outlandish considering their histories. I'm going under here. It's just too much pressure on Steph. It's just too
43
much.
and a half.
43 and a half. Last season, they were 46 and 36.
Okay. Yeah, Buddy Hield is, if he is the player that he says he is and that we've, thought he was in previous seasons. And I thought he fit into the Pacers scheme so fucking well. Like, he bought into Rick Carlisle's offense, and the Warriors offense is in some ways similar. It's higher powered. They like to run, they like to shoot. He's going to be tasked with fitting straight into the 2-guard spot. Can he perform? We'll see. I am also a Pods guy. Love the way he plays. He's just a grinder. We'll see, man. Yeah, Steph, what he did this summer at the Olympics, I don't think I've ever seen a non-NBA performance cement someone for me as much as that did for him.
Right.
Just as long as he's on the court, they are at least going to be in the play-in. I don't think they missed the playoffs. The marker for that was 46. Okay. Yeah. God, so many teams won a lot of games in the West last year. My goodness. Wiggins, I've always been a fan of him, and I saw what he could do. I saw what he was capable of when they won the finals versus the Celtics 3 seasons back. It's
Maple Jordan.
Yes, right. It's we see just how incredible he can be on both ends of the court when he is fully healthy and he is bought into Steve Kerr's scheme. Can he get back to that point? Time will tell. I am going to go over here. And I hate that because I don't like the Warriors. But no, maybe I won't go over. I don't know. This is my biggest coin flip for a win total, I think, out of any team in the West.
It was for me too. So you're going over tentatively. I'm going under firmly. All right. The last team in the let's face it's over category is the Los Angeles Clippers. They're at 37.5.
And they won 51 games last year, Ralph.
Paul George walked. Their over-under last year was probably 49.5. They probably cashed the over.
Is Paul George worth 14 games?
I don't think he is. I just don't think that James Harden, Kawhi Leonard, two of the least reliable regular season players of the last 3 years, are... All right, this is just their roster. These are just names that are popping up. Nick Batum in his 16th season. PJ Tucker in his 13th season. Norman Powell, who made an interesting comment that he thought it might be addition by subtraction getting rid of Paul George. Chris Dunn, Derrick Jones Jr., who I love. Zubac, Mo Bamba, Amir Coffey, Terrence Mann, Kevin Porter Jr., who belongs in prison. Josh Primo, who also belongs in prison. Bones Highland, Kai Jones, Max Christie's brother, Cam Christie. I just look at this and there's no motion. There's no aura. There's nothing to this team that excites me. They have a new arena with the most toilets that Steve Ballmer is very proudly to announce in any professional stadium in the world. He's like, we got 260 toilets in here. He's fired up about the amount of toilets.
That was a fantastic impression, Ralph.
I love
good.
Ballmer. Ballmer's
just so fired up.
I feel bad for him because I fucking love Ballmer. I wish every owner was like Steve, because that's how I would be if I was an owner of an NBA team. I would just be constantly riveted. I'm going under here, under 37.5. And James Harden defender right here, but it's been really hard to defend in the last few years. It's over.
Yeah. I have a buddy who lives in Los Angeles, and I've been trying to go out to see him for a while. I think this is my biggest excuse to go out to see him, is to go to that new stadium. They have that fan wall that I think they got inspired by BVB Borussia Dortmund, the team in the German league for soccer, where it's just like this humongous wall of only Clippers fans that goes top to bottom with 0 splits. So if I have a bucket list item for this season, it's to go and see a game at that stadium. And I'm hoping Kawhi is on the court. I have been praying to the gods above. I want one more Kawhi fully healthy season, man. And I know that's about as big of an ask as you could possibly get, but he's always been one of my favorite players. And when he is out there, they always have a chance. He's another one of those guys where when he is fully healthy, he's one of the most efficient scorers. It's kind of like KD, where He just doesn't really miss shots. He gets to his spots at will. Like he's so deceptively, well, no, I mean, I wouldn't even call him deceptively strong. Like he's fucking huge.
He's just strong.
But I'm so tired of James Harden, man. And I used to be such a big fan. I just like the excitement for him wore out for me a long time ago, a couple seasons back. I think it's when he was on the Sixers where I was really just like, how much more of this guy could we possibly get? Like, what could he bring to a team that's on the brink of like potentially contending that like they wouldn't already have? And like, I know that's insane to say because like he really is a do-it-all player and he's become such an incredible facilitator. He's always been an awesome facilitator, but like that's really become the key of his game the past couple of seasons as he's aged. I just like, I don't see James Harden like, you know, let's say the Kawhi is hurt or he's shaken up. It's like, if that's your second guy, it's like, how much more can we get out of this beast? You know,
since joining the Clippers, Kawhi has averaged 25 points, 7 rebounds, and 4 assists, and he's shot 50% from the field, 40% from 3, and
so
about
cool.
90% from the line. Like he's just the model of consistent. He's such an anomaly too, because like all of these stars, I mean, they might say that, you know, they don't like want the fame and stuff like that. I truly believe he doesn't, but he's an anomaly also just in his game. Like you mentioned that like he's such like a clean scorer. When I coach basketball, I tell my players that we want to shoot up and not out. We want to give the ball an opportunity to get over the rim and in. Kawhi's like the only player I've ever seen that shoots fucking line drives at the rim. And it's just, they call them Brads, back, rim, and down. Like he's the most quintessential Brad shooter I've ever seen. And it makes no sense to me.
He's the only guy that has that shot. It's like a mini leaner. Well, he'll lean like maybe a foot to the left or the right of the side that he is currently dribbling to. He's like the only guy in the league that like has that shot. It's like the most fascinating shot at like 15 or 16 feet from the hoop. For most players, it is an incredibly efficient shot, but for him, I mean, like he could have a hand in his face, and I bet he shoots that shot at like 60+% a clip.
So we're both under on them, 37.5?
37.5 is really low. That would put them at the 12 seed between the 11 and 12 seed last year.
Do you believe in Bones Highland?
Man, yeah, they got Josh Primo, Bones. Bones. Who was the other guy that they have that should be in prison?
Kevin Porter Jr.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, I'm surprised they don't have Jonte Porter too. Wow.
Yeah, and let's go get Miles Bridges while we're at it.
Yeah, right. Seriously, yeah, just turn into the Hornets. I'm gonna go over.
Okay,
I'm gonna do it. Yeah.
All right, we are now moving into basketball purgatory territory. And, you know, this isn't the worst place to be. The Eastern Conference basketball purgatory, just for reference, was the Bulls, Raptors, and Hornets. So there's a lot brighter future here for the West. Let's start with the Houston Rockets, who have a 42.5 over-under for wins. Like, the opposite of the Clippers, when you look at their roster, you just immediately are like, oh, my God, I love that guy. Or, oh, my God, like, why isn't he going to play 28 minutes a game? He's probably going to be, you know, resorted to like 14 instead. Jalen Green, Fred VanVleet, the satanic worshiper that Dylan Brooks is, Tari Eason, Jabari Smith, Şengün, who they thrived with after he got injured last season, which was a shocker. Amen Thompson, Cam Whitmore, Reed Shepherd, who's one of my favorite prospects in years, representing for the Caucasian American out there. Jayshawn Tate is a serviceable NBA player. I mean, they just got guys like down the fucking board. I look at them and I'm like, I want one of these guys on my team. 42.5. It's the same as the Lakers. They're deeper than Lakers. They're more talented than Lakers. Ime Udoka is one hell of a coach. I am going to go over here, but with a stipulation that I think Jalen Green needs to carry the momentum that he garnered the second half of last season into this season if they're going to be a 43-win team in this league. Can Jabari Smith continue to step up? What does Şengün look like when he's put back into this rotation. They did a really interesting thing last year where they played Amen Thompson, who came into the draft last year as a rookie, as like a point guard and a wing, and they played him at center last year, and they went super small ball, and they just ran with guys. So I'm really they're going to be. I'll probably watch 40 Rockets games this year. I'll be an absolute sicko and just have them at all times on one of my multi-views on League Pass. Like, I'm really excited to watch this team, so I'll take the over here. I'll be a Rockets fan this year.
Yeah, like the more and more I think about it, I think I gave overs to too many teams that we've already spoken about.
So you are at 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 and 2. You are at 7 and 2, 7 overs, 2 unders. That just means you're low on the East. That's all.
Yeah, I'd probably go back and change a couple of those, but
we can go back through it and we'll walk through it at the end.
Okay, good. Yeah, because I've got 3 teams in the West that I'm going to parlay and actually call lock here for their overs. The Mavericks are one, the Rockets are the other one, and then we'll talk about the third team here.
Okay.
Probably pretty soon. But yeah, Ime Udoka is one of the best coaches in professional basketball. The only reason why he got fired by the Celtics is because he was fucking one of the top dog's wives, I think. He is so good at his job, and he established a culture that Joe Mazzulla only magnified, right?
Do you think it was fucking Brad Stevens' wife?
Was it Brad Stevens? I don't know. Else. I just know that like the Celtics in his contract or like in their bylaws have like a very strict like no fucking the office lady policy. And like,
I just looked at Brad Stevens' wife. He was not cheating on Nia Long with Brad Stevens' wife. Let me tell you that much. She is not.
Let's hope not. He's with Nia Long. Wow.
Or he was with Nia Long at the time until she found out that she was cheating on him with like either a trainer or an owner's wife.
I could have Naomi Campbell and still might want me a Stormy Daniels, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, so I'm going to go over here. They have so many fun pieces, man. Şengün was another guy that brought me to my fantasy championship last year. I only think he gets better. He's got that type of game that's just going to be like a slow growth.
Baby Jokic.
Constant. Yeah. Like I see constant progression for him. Jalen Green humbled himself a little bit last year, and I think that's because of the coach that he had.
Yep.
Ime Udoka doesn't take shit. And it's like to have another season under the belt with him or another off season, I think is incredibly valuable. I'm going to smash the over with this team. I really want to see this team play in a playing game, which I think is where we're going to see him at, is like the 10 seed.
Şengün was 21 points, 9 rebounds, and 5 assists last year.
That's so nice, man.
Third in most improved player voting. He's also grown since he got to the league. He got drafted at 6'9". And now he's 6'11". Like, he's a big boy now.
Yeah, and we'll see how Reed Shepherd pans out. I don't think, and like it's hard to say this just because of summer league games, but I don't think I've ever been so wrong so fast about a player. I was like not a fan of him in college, but he was just a consummate professional out there during the summer league. He has traits that I think will carry over his entire career. He's just an incredibly smart player, and he can do all things. Who are some other guys that are on this roster that I'm completely forgetting?
Cam Whitmore is like unbelievable. Like every time I watch Cam Whitmore play, I'm like, should there be a franchise that's building around this guy? Like, is he Jaylen Brown? He's so fun to watch.
This one might be sneaky. I really like Steven Adams as a backup center.
Love it. Absolutely
right?
love it.
Just a guy that is so good for the locker room, right? Just like an absolute change of pace from a personality perspective. I think we're going to see him, or I think we've already seen him start to move into the DeAndre Jordan sort of mold, right? Where like they pay that guy to just be funny and
vibes
funny,
guy.
Positive, clap a lot on the sideline, lift teams up. Steven Adams is going to be good for these young guys who were, still don't know how to control their emotions. Love that pickup. Dylan Brooks is a really interesting one, of course. Fred VanVleet is another very interesting one. They just have so much talent and sneaky depth that I think Tari Eason too, who is a supreme rebounder. They have sneaky ability on the boards.
They're also an interesting team to like keep an eye on too for like who's the next big free agent that's coming, because They have Van Vliet on the books this year. Then they have a team option for him next year at $44 million. And if you have Shepard, Green, Thompson all step up, you don't have to pick that up by any means, and you have a lot of room on the books. The next highest paid guy would be Dylan Brooks at $21 million next year, and then 19 the year after that. His contract actually goes down, unlike Bradley Beal, and then everybody else is making $9-10 million bucks. They're all lottery picks essentially. So,
that's a guy we were having the conversation about. Who do we fill the 2-guard spot with for Denver? That's a guy that I could see them, trying to go after.
Freddie V,
Yeah,
a little buyout action.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm gonna smash the over on this one. Parlay them with the Mavericks and then one other team, which I think is coming up soon, if not the next team.
Okay, so the next team in basketball purgatory is the New Orleans Pelicans.
No.
And they're at 45.5 wins. They added DeJounte Murray in a trade where they gave up Larry Nance Jr., who was literally, like, I'm not even kidding, the only center on their roster that was left over.
Yeah.
And Dyson Daniels as well. So now their starting lineup is, I believe,
defense.
DeJounte, McCollum, Zion, Ingram, and Tice. And then they bring in Trey Murphy, Jose Alvarado, and Herb Jones. # not on Herb off the bench. I texted you guys today, my dream trade, if it could just happen right now, would be Jarrett Allen to the Pelicans and Trey Murphy and maybe a pick or two to the Cavs. I'm not sure the contracts will work out.
You would come up with. That's a trade that, and I fucking love it.
I mean, get the Fro down in New Orleans, or it could be for Ingram even. Like if Ingram goes to Cleveland, like that's so much fun. If it's Garland, Mitchell, and Ingram out there with Mobley, like I'm just oozing at the thought of that. But Trey Murphy seemed a little bit more realistic. But they have been shopping Ingram around, so maybe that's the opportunity. I should tweet that every single day until it happens and see if I can get one of those two guys' attention. 45.5. This is tough.
I gotta go under with some of these teams, man. But like, I love the numbers, and I think it's just like if you don't have a big, right? Daniel Tice, dude, right? Like, I just heard you say that he'd be in the front 5. It's like that just is not going to work.
They're 49-33 last year with a center with Larry Nance. I'm trying to check out their roster. Here we go. Just by
terrible
position.
At home too. Terrible at home. They were like 500 at home. They were like considerably better on the road.
You know what we haven't mentioned? I liked Jordan Hawkins too, the UConn kid that just shoots the laces.
Oh, dude, he's great. He's an absolute baller, that kid.
That's a Nuggets guy right there.
Yeah, right. Yeah, no, we got to keep an eye on that 2-guard spot for that team, man. Something's gonna happen. I feel like something has to happen. I'm the biggest Zion truther that you will ever meet. I fucking love the way he plays, dude. I could watch that guy for hours. I think I watched more Pelicans games last year than almost any other team besides the Nuggets and the Bulls, who are my 2 squads.
Played in 70 games last year. Career high for Zion. He was remarkably healthy, given that he played 29 games the year before that and didn't play the year before that. Then, when it came time for the playoffs, he wasn't available, which was a real disappointment because that Pelicans Thunder series would have been that much more fun if he was on the court. But I mean,
what was that game he had in the play-in where he was just like going off and then he got hurt in the 4th?
So let me see. He averaged 23 points last year, and he was shooting 57% from the field. And he also averaged 6 rebounds and 5 assists. So not like the jumpiest stats. It actually went down because he averaged 26 and 27 in years prior, but that was in way less amount of games. So, well, can you play him at the 5? Can he guard a center? Because he's not going to guard anybody on the perimeter. Maybe that's their strategy here is they just go super small ball. He plays the 5. He just gets physical with like guys like, I mean, some of these teams, like, you don't even have to guard a center. Like, it's him guarding Gobert, like, who isn't a threat. Hartenstein, Jokic is going to be a problem for them no matter what. But I'm not sure, like, who he actually has to guard at the center possession in the West other than Jokic. Nobody's jumping to mind. Like, Şengün, I think that he can get physical with those guys. I actually don't hate that idea. You play him at point guard on offense and center on defense. Could be kind of fun.
I'm really surprised Brandon Ingram is still on this team.
We're talking Bay?
He's another one of my favorite players to watch, but I thought that it was going to get done at the deadline last year. It did not, and now they're staring down the barrel of a very weak big man rotation. I just felt like the move was there for them to make, and they didn't. And I really hope that doesn't bite them in the ass. I just don't know how much he wants to be a Pelican, to be honest with you. I felt like the deal was maybe not sealed, but yeah, this is another one of those teams where it's a big coin flip for me in terms of the win total over under, because it is entirely contingent on the health of their best player.
What does DeJounte do for them? Like, is he a ceiling raiser or just a floor raiser?
DeJounte Murray is a really confusing player for me because he's so good on defense. And in truth, when you look at it from a 10,000-foot view, this Pelicans team has some of the best defense from positions 1 to 3 out of any team in the league, right? Herb, DeJounte, man, if they still had Dyson, who is an elite defender, and like that's about all he can do. Yeah, like they're just fantastic. They still have Jose Alvarado, who I think is going to be there his entire career, to be honest.
100%.
Yeah, right. Yeah, he doesn't want to be. Yeah, he doesn't want to be anywhere else.
He's half Puerto Rican, half Cajun at this point.
Yeah, it's just like there's only so much you can do in a league where the big man has become so important to team success for like pretty much every single team besides the Celtics. But even then, Kristaps was absolutely, vital for them in the finals. I just don't see this team succeeding if Daniel Tice is their best hope and you bring up the idea and the possibility of playing Zion at the center, but that feels like a dream scenario that like he's doing 2K, right? But like, can he be out there for 70 plus again if he has to bang down there with the absolute best in the league when it comes to like 7 foot plus players? I don't think he can.
Yeah. He's like 6'6". Like he's Charles Barkley. He's not 6'8", 6'9". He's like more in the 6'5", 6'6" range.
Yeah. Which is funny. If like if he's in the 6'5" to 6'6" range, I think they have Christian Braun listed at like 6'6", which is like very funny to think about those two like being the same size on paper or the same height. Their over under win totals what again?
45.5.
I can't keep going over. I'm going to go under just barely. I think that they play in the play-in again. Yeah.
Okay. We'll move into the last team in basketball purgatory, which is the Sacramento Kings. Their over-under is at 44.5. They essentially swapped Harrison Barnes for DeMar DeRozan. You're nodding as if this is the last team in your promised parlay. Interesting.
It is, Ralph. It is.
All right, go ahead. Give me the spiel on the Kings.
Yeah. Give me the floor here for a second. Malik Monk coming back is so much more important than people are, giving it credit for. That guy is fantastic, man. And I mean, he was the odds-on favorite preseason last year to be the sixth man of the year. I think he's going to be in contention for it again.
Should have won it last year if it wasn't for Naz Reid.
Yes, absolutely. I love the DeMar ad. Because this team is already so clutch in the fourth, and that has been DeMar's game in Chicago. DeMar feeds off of a packed house too, and they are going to be packing that shit. I mean, there are few fan bases that show up for home games quite like the Kings. Lighting the beam, man. De'Aaron Fox, DeMar DeRozan, Malik Monk, and Sabonis on the same court is so fun. But we got to talk. Oh, yeah, and then Keegan, too. We cannot forget about Keegan going into his third season. Just one of the most lights out spot up shooters in the NBA. But where's the defense? It's like, fuck, man. Like, that's tough. So I think that they're going to be one of the most fun teams to watch on League Pass this year for that very reason, where they're going to be in a lot of high scoring games. But we saw what the Kings could be when they were at full strength with Mike Brown as their coach 2 or 3 seasons back. I mean, they were in lockstep with a Warriors team who went on to win the championship, right? Like in one of the most exciting first round playoff series that I've seen in a long time. That Golden State Sacramento series was primetime TV. I'm going to hammer the over on this one too. Yeah, this is my third team. I think that at full strength, if they are ever in games going into the fourth, I am always going to bet on the Kings. because
That's
they
actually
have
a fun thing to keep track of is the live bet odds. Like, I'm not very good at gambling on the NFL ahead of the week, as my record has suggested this year. I'm a little
me
bit
and
below
you both.
500.
Yeah, I fucking suck.
I make all my money back live betting NBA. Like that
Yep.
could be, I mean, I don't do a big enough unit size for it to be my full-time job, but I'm confident in my ability to detect how a game's rhythm is going. And you're totally right. Like Fox has been an elite closer. I mean, if you just look at the fourth quarter scores over the last 3 years, I think him and DeRozan are probably at least in the top 3 or 4. Keegan taking another step up. Sabonis is built for the regular season, unfortunately. That's just my thought process with him. I don't think that he's as much of a playoff performer. And, you know, we talked about it a lot yesterday with Martian. Continuity is so huge in the NBA when you can be around the same guys for a few years in a row. And this is a core that's been together for a while now between Herter, Fox, Sabonis, Monk. And now
Kevin
you're
Huerter,
really
too. Yeah.
you're really just and Mike Brown is the head coach. Like there's consistency there that I really, really like. So Keon Ellis is nice. Davion Mitchell is out of there. They don't have to worry about giving him minutes because they wasted a high draft pick on him. So I like this team. My one concern would be they got my least favorite player in the league for literally no reason other than the fact that I don't think he belongs in the league. Jordan McLaughlin, who was the backup point guard in Timberwolves for the last few years. Every time I would go to Timberwolves games, I would watch this guy play or warm up, and I'm like, he just doesn't belong out there. Like, he doesn't do anything really well. So I hope he doesn't get any run with this team. I will go over with you as well. And I like that parlay that you have because I have an over on all 3 of those teams. All right, moving into the last tier. We can race through 2 of these teams, but let's spend a good chunk of time on my favorite team in this tier.
Yeah, which has got to be the Spurs, right?
The Cooper Flag sweepstakes. The Spurs over-under is 35.5. And the thought of Cooper Flag playing with Victor Wembanyama, like, my balls just tingled a little bit. It's just an unbelievable thought process. 2 competitive psychopaths that love to win, love to play both sides.
Chris Paul, too.
35.5. They go get Chris Paul. They get the aforementioned Harrison Barnes. They still have Sohan, who shoots his free throws with one hand. That isn't a joke. Devin Vassell, Keldon Johnson, and obviously Victor Wembanyama. I think this is the last year for the next 15 years that the Spurs don't win 40 games, and I don't think they even... 35.5 is low, though. They get Chris Paul. He's pretty good still. He's not great, but he's still pretty good. He's entering, his 19th season in the league? The rest of the roster just fucking stinks. Charles Bassey, Blake Wesley, Julian Champagne, Malachi Branham, City Sissoko. Stephon Castle's exciting. I'm excited to watch him with Wemby, but for the most of it, Zach Collins, it's a lot of PU out here.
Yeah, no. In the famous words of Jack Martin, PU.
I think I got to go under here.
Me too, but they're going to come really close, and I'm going to be cheering for them. Shout out Ben Masterson. This is a fun team. I'm going to be watching a lot of them. Yeah, no, Stephon Castle, he's the kind of player that can make an instant impact. Even with being a one and done guy in college. Or no, did he play for 2 seasons or 1 in college? Was he a one and done guy?
It's Collins?
Stephon Castle.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, he's one and done. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. I think that he already has all the traits to be a pro. Just like the way he plays. I don't even think he has to develop his shot all that much in this first season. I just think he needs to do exactly what Pop tells him to do. He's in the driver's seat with one of the greatest coaches in sports history.
Take Devin Vassell's spot, Stephon Castle. Go snatch that motherfucker. Because I would watch the Spurs last year, end of game, and Vassell, I don't know what he thinks of himself, but I think he thinks he's DeRozan.
Up shots, man.
Every time. Like, if I could have bet on that, like, who's going to take the last shot for the Spurs when a buzzer beater's on the line, I would have taken Vassell like minus 750 because it just would have been an automatic cash every time because he wouldn't even look Wembanyama's way half the time. And that just has to stop. I'm tired of it. So this is almost an anti-Vassell statement.
Yeah, I am going under. And if the trade for Chris Paul was made 4 seasons ago, then I'm saying over because we saw what he was able to do in his mid to early 30s when he joined the Thunder, when he joined the Rockets, right? Which was, fuck, time flies when you're a piece of shit, Ralph. God.
Facts.
Right. But like the Chris Paul of present, I mean, he just didn't look very good last year. I just
and
it
25 minutes a game, average 6
Yeah.
assists, didn't even look at the rim half the time when he caught it. Maybe
but
time for coaching.
But if Stephon Castle's like the point forward that we think he is, he couldn't have a better Jedi master at his side,
100%.
teaching him the ways of the game. Yeah, I mean, I think that this team gets over 30, but I don't think that they hit 35, right? The number's 35 and a half.
35 and a half.
Yeah. I'm going to go under here, but they're going to be really fun to watch. And Wemby's a lock for the All-Star team. It's just going to happen.
I might fuck around and quit my job and go become a ball boy for the Spurs and try to take the Spoelstra route of like ball boy to video scout coordinator and just pick Chris Paul and Greg Popovich's brain. I think that's my dream staff to be a part of, is just working with those two guys.
You want to talk about a stadium that shakes. It's like not very well made and it's like small. It's like one of the smaller stadiums in the NBA. I was there. I watched Doug McDermott play a March Madness game for Creighton there when I was like 12 or 13. And that stadium, it's like all of the seats just like tower over the fucking court. That would be a really fun environment to like be an employee at. So it's going to be a very, very exciting season. They're going to get a lot of primetime games. They are going to be in the spotlight purely because they have the most fascinating player that we've ever seen, right? But I'm still going to stick with the under here. 33, 34, and like 47 feels okay to me.
Cooper Flag sweepstakes candidate number 2 is the Utah Jazz. Their over-under is 27.5 wins. I don't hate this roster. I am Keontae George stan number 1. That is my guy. I'm going to fuck around and get a fat head of him and hang it in my room. I think Danny Ainge is too smart for this. I believe they still own their own draft pick for this year. So I think that there's going to be a lot of tanking. Larry Markin, I think, finally gets dealt at some point this year for a package of picks or whoever it might be. So I will go under 27.5 here. They came out the gates hot last year, and then they faltered off a bit. They went 31-51 last year. They were 2-8 in their last 10. And there wasn't really like a Cooper Flag level guy, obviously, in this draft class. So they were just kind of tanking for the fuck of it last year. Drafted Cody Williams. They still have Jordan Clarkson.
Go Buffs.
Drafted Kyle Filipowski, who has a girlfriend.
Kyle had himself a summer.
Yeah, he had a weird week. There's no doubt about it. Hashtag Duke in the NBA, though. We prevail. And Isaiah Collier as well from USC. Just a young team. They only have 2 guys that have played more than 10 years in the league. Still have John Collins. I'm going to go under here. I'll go under 27.5. I don't think Danny Ainge is going to fuck around. He wants to bring that white boy from Duke to Utah. Back-to-back years, Filipowski and Flag.
Yeah, I think that this team needs to focus on, at the trade deadline, bringing in some veterans, guys that can really coach up this incredibly young roster that they have. Cody Williams is so raw, and he could be so incredibly talented, but he was so skittish for the Buffs last year. Didn't really have any confidence, and I think that's partially on our coach. I think that he's going to see eye to eye with Will Hardy, who I am a fan of.
Yes.
One of my favorite coaches in professional basketball. There are going to be teams that have vets that kind of get pushed out of the playoff rotation that will be looking to deal those guys when the time comes. And I think that Utah needs to be that team that brings in a couple guys that are in like their 10th season or their 12th season, right? That can like really be a prevailing force for this squad. Like we're seeing it with the Rockets, right? I think that the Jazz need to follow suit. They have a blue chip coach. They have a lot of talent, but they just need time. So I'm going to go under here too.
The last team in the Cooper Flag sweepstakes is the Portland Trailblazers.
Yuck, man.
They drafted Donovan Clingan, who I like. They still have DeAndre Ayton. Let me ask you this. Scoot Henderson. It can't be over.
No.
Right? They're like, there's no way. Okay.
He's just too smart. He's too smart.
He needs to get rid of the goggles. He needs to get some contacts.
Man.
The goggles isn't a good look anymore in 2024.
You want to talk about zero aura? Yeah. My goodness.
And he came into like the league with so much aura, and then it was just completely abandoned. But they got Denny Advia from the Wizards, Anthony Simons. I'm trying to talk myself into the over. I can't. Shaden Sharp. I'm going to go under 20.5 here. I think they're going to stink.
Yeah, they've got DeAndre Ayton and Jeremy Grant too, right? Don't they still have Jeremy Grant?
I guess so, I suppose.
Yeah, Chauncey Billups, his time there might be coming to a close pretty soon because I think that they're going to want a new exciting coach. This is the team. There's not a team in the league that needs Cooper Flagg more than the Blazers because the fact of the matter is the only times that the Blazers have ever been good in their franchise's history is when they hit big on a top 5 pick. You are not going to get stars to come and play for your team, man. Like these guys that are playing in Houston, Los Angeles, Chicago, it's like getting a guy to move to Portland in the year of our Lord 2024 is next to impossible.
They have to be like a huge Fred Armisen fan. Like a huge Fred Armisen fan to move there.
Huge. Yeah. Like you got to watch a lot of TV and listen to a lot of Elliott Smith. Yeah. It's we'll see. This is a team that I might watch a game or two of all season. I just don't have a lot of interest in them, mostly because I want to see how Donovan Clingan fits in. It's funny with a guy like DeAndre Ayton. It's almost like they're opening up the door for him to fuck off with that pick. And I don't really blame him. He's one of my least favorite players in professional basketball. I have never seen somebody that doesn't use their size and ability as little as that guy. And I don't see him being a part of the rebuild for this team. But they got a couple of fun pieces. Anthony Simons, Clingan. It's a very short list. And Cooper Flagg, I'm going to be pulling for him to be a Blazer. If he can't be a Bull, if he can't be on my Bulls, I feel like the Blazers would be a really good spot for him. It just feels right.
I like the idea of him and Clingan together. All right, we'll go through all of these one at a time so you can change them if you need to. But just to recap, we both are over on the Thunder at 57.5 wins.
Okay.
We are both over on the Minnesota Timberwolves at 51.5 wins. The Denver Nuggets at 50.5. I am under. You are over. The Dallas Mavericks, we are both over at 50.5. And you locked that one in for your parlay. I like that. We are both under on the Phoenix Suns at 47.5. I'm actually going to switch to an over here. I think I might have mistyped that.
I'm going to stick with the under.
Memphis Grizzlies, you are under 47.5. I am over. Pelicans, we are both under 45.5. Sacramento Kings, we are both over 44.5. The Golden State Warriors, I am under 43.5. You are over. I'm pausing for a change potentially.
Yep. We're going to change that one to under. So that puts me at 5-4. Yeah.
The Houston Rockets, we're both over at 42.5.
Yep. Love it. Love it.
We're both in, folks. Over on the Los Angeles Lakers at 42.5. Pausing for change.
Nope. Keep it.
The Los Angeles Clippers at 37.5. I'm under, you're over.
Dude, how do they win only 35 games? That's like us saying, yeah, so I mean, that's like me. I just talked about how I think that the Spurs will be close. That's like the Clippers and the Spurs winning the same amount of games.
Yeah.
Man.
I mean, their over-under is 2 games apart. 37.5 versus 35.5.
I'm going to, what? So I said that I was over on this one. I'm going to stick with that.
All right. And then we're under on the last 3. The Spurs at 35.5, the Jazz at 27.5, and the Blazers at 20.5.
Okay, so that puts me at 8-7. Yeah.
Perfect.
Good. And my bet, you want to talk for a bit here while I give people odds on it?
Yeah, so this has been great. This has been really exciting. I mean, almost an hour and 40 minutes of talking hoops. Really excited for this upcoming season. This is dropping on Monday, should be October 21st. The season is tipping off tomorrow night, so make sure you get your picks in now because they do disappear after the season tips off, unfortunately, for all of those teams. Not only do we have 2 great games on Tuesday night when the season is tipping off between the Knicks and Celtics and I believe the Timberwolves and Lakers, then Wednesday night we have 10 games. And
Jeez.
It is going to be
Ralph, I don't think we've ever been more back, man. I don't think we've ever been more back.
This is my favorite time of the year. I mean, Halloween's right around the corner, watching scary movies, watching NBA. So I can't watch scary movies anymore because I'll be watching NBA or NFL every single day and night. It's the best time of the year.
Yeah. Here, so Kings over on wins, Rockets over on wins, Mavericks over on wins is plus 640.
Cash it.
Lock it in, folks. No, sorry, plus 613. Still, fuck it.
Very takeable. I'm
Cash
in on
it
that.
in.
All right, that's a beautiful
Absolutely.
bet. Barter, thank you for joining. Everybody, thank you for tapping in to the live on TikTok. We'll try to do this for maybe every pod moving forward, and then thank you for listening, obviously, on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Make sure to share it with a friend. We will see you guys on the other side. Peace out.
I'm loving the pop off.